Hey everyone, how's it going? Serena here. Just checking in for a quick update on this little self-experiment I'm conducting on myself by trying a plant-based ketogenic way of eating for the next 2 weeks. So, I've received tons of comments and questions and just overall curiosity about this experiment. Hello everyone that's checking in, great to see you all there. And so I just wanted to tackle a few that come to my mind right away, and I'll do my best to answer everything as we go along for the next 2 weeks and sharing as much as possible on this experience. It's a journey of self-discovery. First of all, just because I'm trying what I am trying right now doesn't mean that my previous way of eating was wrong or faulty in any ways. I'm doing this with the intention of trying to see with an open mind, because I firmly believe that every single one of us is forever growing, evolving, and changing. And as we go through life and evolve and change, so do our habits. One of the greatest causes of people feeling stuck and getting stuck and actually regressing in life is resisting the natural change that's inevitable. It's an inevitable part of life. Whenever you resist change, for the sake of generally comfort, because that's why we generally tend to resist it, because it's more comfortable not to change, and it is more comfortable not to change for sure, because you know what you're doing and you don't have to expend a lot of energy to follow deeply embedded habits. However, whenever you resist change for the sake of comfort, you're actually running the risk of long-term discomfort. Because like I said, change is a fundamental part of life, and you can only resist it so much before it shows itself fiercely and you have to take action. And so I am a big advocate of change and pliability and adaptability, and this is what I preach to everybody we work with, and therefore I want to practice it in my own life. Not because there's anything necessarily wrong with the current way of living or doing things, but just because there might be an even better way, which is, and the only way to find out is to try something new. But also, most importantly, it's because I like to test myself that way. That's how I discover new aspects of my being and delve deeper into self-development, is by trying new things and putting myself at issue and discovering new things. And I don't think that makes me any less of an expert. In fact, I invite you to beware of the know-it-all, one-size-fits-all experts out there that claim to have the one universal solution that supposedly works for everybody forever. I think when it comes to everything in life, but especially when it comes to nutrition, there is no such thing. Because you are constantly changing and evolving and growing, and your habits are changing and your lifestyle is changing, and you as an individual are. And so therefore, your food habits will grow and evolve and change with you. This is not to say that there aren't some universal principles of healthy eating that apply to all of us, and most of us know those. I don't have to delve deep into those. You probably know what's generally good or not so good for you, and so it's important to work with these universal principles, and it's important also to be adaptable and flexible and open-minded to new things that might take things even further for you, or may not. I don't know how this experiment is going to go for me. I'm just open to finding out new things, and even if I was to revert back to exactly the same way of eating as before this 2 weeks experiment, I'll still be glad to have tried it, because for sure I will learn something, and I'm already learning things about me and about nutrition and about how certain foods work for me that I wouldn't have known if I hadn't taken on this experiment. And so the bottom line message here that I want to share with you is be open-minded. Don't ever think that anything is set in stone to do with life, but especially to do with your way of eating, because that will sooner or later get in the way of you fulfilling your greatest potential as a ever-growing, ever-evolving human being. So that's a little bit of like to create a little bit more of a frame as to what my mindset is around it, and what my approach and motivations behind these experiments are. It's really an experiment of self-development through food, which may or may not add another tool in my toolbox of techniques that I use to support our shifters. But in any case, whether it ends up being a good tool or not, it is going to bring forth new learnings. So then, how do I feel? Today's day 2, and I feel pretty good. Yesterday afternoon was a little bit uncomfortable. I had a little bit of what some people may call keto flu, which apparently is some of the symptoms from shifting your macros and the body getting used to using fat as an energy source rather than carbohydrates. And so I was just experiencing some very mild nausea, nothing particularly invasive. None of that today. I feel great. I feel like my normal self, other than my hunger and satiation have changed. And I find it hard to describe exactly how. I feel hungry in a different way, and I feel full and satiated in a different way from before. But again, it's a very subtle change. So I think my body is still adjusting. I am not currently into ketosis yet. And I know this because I had to do this little test with my urine in the morning that tells me kind of how far into it I am. And I'm still kind of mildly into it, not heavily into it. So we'll see what happens once I'm in full ketosis. It takes a couple of days. I am enjoying the food that I'm eating. I don't feel deprived or restricted in any way. For sure, there's certain things that I used to eat that I'm not eating, and there are certain things that I didn't used to eat regularly that I'm now eating regularly. I had a bit of a craving for bananas this morning, just because I'm used to eating bananas every day, but it literally subsided pretty quickly. Like, I'm not missing anything. I don't feel in any way like I'm missing anything. The week before was more mentally challenging than the actual week of doing the experiment, and that's because, the mind wants to rebel against change. It wants to stick to what it knows. It wants to stick to what it likes, and so there's bound to be a little rebellion that kicks in. And I experienced it. Thankfully, I must say, I have the tools to handle it and pull myself together and come back to myself very quickly, and I can immediately notice these thoughts and rationalize them. However, the experience has made me really very, very much more present to what happens when you change your eating habits and what are the thoughts that come up in your mind, which I was already aware of, but it was just a good reminder. And it can be really challenging. And I say this to our shifters, and the single most important work that you can do actually when you change your nutrition is to work on your mindset alongside it. Because, in the ideal world, we would simply be eating to survive like animals do. However, we are way more intricate animals than the average one out there. And so therefore our eating is deeply embedded with our cultural roots and with our feelings and emotions. And it is important to recognize and honor this connection so that you know what to do with it, and you realize that it's not as simple as just eating to survive. You know, you are bound to have emotional reactions when you are changing your eating habits and eating new things or not eating things that you're used to. So yeah, whenever you shift in any direction, whether it's this or any other, you need to train your food habits as much as you're training your focus at the same time. Focus and food are deeply intertwined pillars. They work hand in hand. If you fail to pay attention to the mindful and emotional aspects of eating, you're bound to have a much harder time. So yeah, this is my quick update on day 2. I will continue to share along throughout the next 2 weeks. If you have any specific questions, make sure that you pop them in the group and I will answer them for you. And perhaps throughout the week I'll also share a little bit of what it is that I'm actually eating on a plant-based ketogenic diet, what it looks like, what are the foods that go into it, and what are the foods that I'm currently not eating, so that you kind of get a sense of what I'm working with. And yeah, be open, try new things, never be too set on your habits and routines, because remember, you're always growing and you're bound to outgrow the way you used to do things. And so when you try and stick yourself into old habits that you've outgrown, you're forcing yourself into, say, a smaller box than what can actually fit you. You're limiting your greatest potential. And this applies to food, but it really applies to anything in life, I feel anyways. That's it for now. Short, quick update, or maybe not that short. Any questions, let me know, and I'll catch up with you tomorrow. Ciao for now.